Hello.
Hello, sir. Hi.
Hi.
So, yes, our moderator is already there. He's just joining in a minute. Is the audio okay for you?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Good. Done.
You are Priyanka?
Sir, I'm Suvida. I'm from THA. We are the organizers for the panel discussion.
Cool.
Yes. Santosh has joined. Hi, Santosh. Mr. Shawn has joined. Yes, and over to you. So all the very best for the panel discussion.
Hey, Santosh.
Hi, Shawn. How are you?
I'll see. How are you?
All good. All good. Long time. It's good. Hey, Suvida, can you mute all other participants when they're getting into the call? Yeah, that'll be good.
Sure.
Awesome, Shawn. How's everything with you?
Your hair has grown slightly longer since the last time we spoke, I think.
Yeah. Let's just say I'm trying to fit into the crypto standards. So awesome. Are you in Singapore or did you move?
I'm in Singapore at the moment.
Singapore.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. How are you treating the bear market right now?
It's good. I mean, I think it's brought, well, not just crypto, right? All tech sort of valuations are down. So that's probably broadly healthy long term, short term pain. But thankfully we're sort of unaffected by or at least directly unaffected by the FTX nonsense. But yeah, otherwise it's all good. I'm in the US again, on the road again, from next month. Okay,
awesome. That'll be nice. So I'll just introduce a little bit about what we're doing and a little bit of background about T-Hub community. So T-Hub has been a real world, community way before. So it started like over a decade ago. Started as a innovation campus based in one of the top universities in Hyderabad. And now it has scaled into T-Hub 2.0, which is now a new campus, and which makes this one of the world's largest innovation campuses. It can currently house over 200 companies in the building, has a community of over 1,000 plus startups and 50 plus universities. I would love to actually show you sometime the campus, maybe an India visit in future. But it's a thriving community. And when we wanted to kickstart Web3 community based in Hyderabad, we felt T-Hub as a natural partner because it has been driving innovation in the ecosystem for a very long time. And we didn't treat Web2 and Web3 communities differently because we felt anybody, just like how internet, now everybody is part of internet community, whether you are a builder or a user. I think we'll see a similar trend for Web3 as well. So we felt it makes sense to just look into existing companies, existing products. How can they leverage Web3 tooling and make advantage of these processes to move into Web3 rather than being just Web3 native as well, right? So there are two paths like we see in the community. You can not only just build with the community like most crypto protocols, but if you already have a product and you have an existing user base, you can also scale your community using Web3. Which is also an interesting space, right? So that's where T-Hub comes in and plays a role. We've started this as a community-owned initiative to bring some of the thought leaders in the space and people in our community access their perspectives. We are looking at these as two sessions. One we call it as masterclasses, and the other we called it as panel discussions. And we've A/B tested some of these early. Then we took a break to reorganize our community because there are a lot of digital processes and there's a lot of demand when it comes to Web3. There are a ton of developers. In Hyderabad alone, I think there are over 10,000 Web3 jobs available. So it's growing massively. So we're setting up digital processes to support this community. I think Amit is also here. Hi, Amit. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
All good. How are you?
Good, man. Awesome.
Just introducing Shawn about what we were doing at T-Hub.
Yeah. Hey, Shawn.
Yeah,
Shawn, meet Amit. Glad to have you guys meet through this panel.
Sure, man.
So we'll just wait for 3 more minutes and I will give a shout out to other panelists and I'll just come back.
Shawn, where are you based?
Singapore at the moment.
Singapore. Okay, awesome.
So I spend about half my time in Singapore and half my time on the road, for better or worse. But I spent a fair amount of time in the US actually.
I was there for Token 2049 last year. Yeah, it was nice.
You guys work closely with the Algorand ecosystem, right?
Yeah, so we have 3 kind of products. So one is on the Algorand ecosystem where we have Fund 1, Fund 2. We also run a bunch of nodes, and then other is HFI. So like Helium, Filecoin, Planet Watch, WeatherXM, all of those. And the third one is we are currently working on it. It's like a cross-chain offering. And then we also have our own proprietary family office from which we make other investments. So those are the 4 main kind of.
Interesting. Yeah, I just got off the phone with Darius right before this.
Oh, David, who?
Darius from QCP.
Darius. Okay, QCP. Oh, Darius. Yeah. So QCP, we have a very good working relationship with QCP.
Yeah.
We invested in Tita Nuts and a bunch of others.
I'm in Tita Nuts as well, although I'm still waiting for my token distribution. Maybe not yet.
I know. Yeah. What about you, Shawn? While we are waiting, it's like
I run Artichoke Capital, or sort of early stage, pre-seed, seed stage venture fund, focused on Web3. I'll save it for the intro later, but my background is done a bunch of things prior to sort of going all in on the Web3 ecosystem. Was a lawyer, ran some consumer business, was in private equity, so been an interesting year over the past sort of 12 to 18 months, but I think things look sort of less frothy now, which is nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll just get started. Good morning, everyone. So before we just start with the session, just want to introduce who are we catering to through this session. So we have some of the in-house entrepreneurs joining the session as we speak, but ideally this session is recorded for our larger community that is looking to move into Web3. We have a combination of Web3 developers, Web3 entrepreneurs, as well as people who are Web3 enthusiasts moving from building internet products and exploring blockchain, crypto, and Web3. So excited to have Shawn, Amit as part of the panel discussion. I'll quickly allow you to introduce yourself. We also have Karan joining as well. So over to you, Shawn. It'll be great if you can quickly introduce about yourself and Artichoke Capital.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. My name's Shawn. I'm mostly based in Singapore. I run this fund, Artichoke Capital. We're a venture investment firm focused on Web3 and primarily in the sort of early stage, pre-seed, seed, and up till Series A type startups. We look globally. I personally have a pretty broad range of experiences in my background. I was a lawyer by training, practiced as a lawyer for a few years. Worked in private equity in a bunch of the different roles, both in the consumer investing side, but also as a consumer operator. So funny story is I went from being a lawyer to running Burger Kings for a private equity firm out in China, Korea, Japan, and some of the more interesting, I think, tech forward markets. And so, the idea was to start a venture fund that would sort of apply a mix of crypto native understanding of the technology with sort of classical investing around business and consumer and the back founders in the sort of mass adoption of this new technology platform.
Thank you, Shawn. Great to have you. Before we dive deeper into your perspectives on Web3, I'll let Amit introduce yourself to the community.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Santosh and Tiha for having me. So very quick background. So I work with Borderless. So been with them for around 3 years now. So we primarily have 4 main kind of things in Borderless that we do. One is we are very deep in the Algorand ecosystem. So from where we run a bunch of nodes. We did fund 1, which fully deployed in July. From there, we have invested in over 160 companies directly. And we also ran 7 global accelerators with 7 partners like Longhash, Draper in the West Coast, Roker in the East Coast, Eterna Capital in Europe, and so on. Then we are currently deploying from a fund to also raising the fund to in parallel. And we are going through the same pains, which, I'm sure US founders go through in the fundraising in this environment, in this new world post FTX. Then the second thing is we also have a H5 focus theme where we did a staking and mining fund 1, and then now we are doing more of a kind of a both liquid and illiquid investments, so kind of a hedge fund structure. From there, the idea of that is we invest in projects who are on the edge, incentivizing people to contribute. For example, Pollen or Helium that are incentivizing the use of IoT or 5G, WeatherXM, PlanetWatch that are incentivizing collection of data, Filecoin that is decentralized file usage, or Render decentralized GPU usage, and so on. So that's on the H5 side. The third is a cross-chain offering, which we are currently finalizing. We have locked in the lead and all. We've locked in an anchor investor. It will basically be cross-chain across other layer 1s. And the fourth is our own proprietary family office from which we do investments. Usually we don't lead round from the family office side. Usually we do follow on as of now. But from there we have invested in ETH, Cardano, Polygon, all the other Avalanche, all the other ecosystems. We also are, from there we have also invested in around 12 of the leading kind of VC funds as well from the family office side. So that's a quick background on Borderless, and I'm a partner in the fund. I manage the overall investment process, more involved in Algorand and the exchange and the kind of cross-chain offering. And a colleague of mine, he leads the H5 side.
Thank you, Amit. We have Prashanth from Woodstock. Prashanth, can you hear us?
Hey guys, yes I can. Hello.
Awesome. It'll be great if you can do a quick intro to the community.
Sure. Hi everyone, and thanks Santosh for taking us through this, and thanks to T-Hub as well for inviting us. So I'm Prashanth. I'm a partner and fund manager at Woodstock Fund. We are one of the largest Web3 native funds to rise out of India, with now presence in India, UAE, and US. We've been investing across the stack from 2019, and we have 2 funds, Fund 1 and Fund 2, between which we can cover pre-seed, seed, and Series A. Myself, before joining Woodstock 2 years ago, I was an entrepreneur in Web3 for a couple of years. And prior to that, I was an investment banker with Morgan Stanley in London for 10 years. And on top of what I do with Woodstock, I'm also an advisor to Boston Consulting Group in India on Web3, and also mentor a couple of accelerators here, and have recently started a podcast as well, focusing on Web3 and India.
Awesome. Thank you, Prashanth. Karan, over to you if you can do a quick intro.
Sure. Thanks, Santosh. Thanks for having us. And Amit, Shawn, Prashanth, nice to meet you guys. And thank you, T-Hub, for hosting this panel. So I'm Karan Ambwani. I am leading the dYdX Foundation in India. So those of you who don't know about dYdX, it's one of the leading perpetual derivatives decentralized exchange. So essentially the foundation, the goal for us is to improve the governance and increase the growth of the dYdX protocol. we have in the last few months received a lot of interest, especially with the things that are happening in the digital asset space with the centralized exchanges. So like the continuous focus is to improve the protocol as well as like educate users, educate community members to participate more actively. In India, the focus for us again is like educating everyone how to like participate in governance. Even today, we'll be talking a bit about like DAOs, how to get more involved. About me, I have been in the Web3 space for most of my career now. I have led strategy operations at Consensus in India and Conflux, which was a layer 1 protocol. Also, I have, before joining dYdX, I founded my own perpetual exchange on a Cosmos protocol. And also like mentor a bunch of startups, consult a few companies on product, UI, UX, and the DeFi space particularly. So yeah, again, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Karan. So to all the panelists, this is a great opportunity for us as a community to learn from all your experiences. The panel discussions topic today is about DAOs as the future of organizations. It is being conducted at a time where the trust in our ecosystem is going down because of some of the centralized players in the ecosystem. At the same time, it's interesting because if we just look at the history of companies, it has a fantastic repercussions, the limited liability, all these factors came into how companies could form, and then that never got upgraded for a very long time. Today, most of the startups in our community are digital native businesses. However, the ownership stacks of these businesses are still in the analog world. So DAOs is a very interesting topic to understand. How can all these companies, communities, and organizations move to Web3 and be more trustworthy to their communities and probably govern better communities and thriving communities? At the same time, it's interesting to understand your perspectives on where this space is going. Why do we need to pay attention to DAOs, and what are your perspectives on the future of it? We'll first start off with defining DAOs. Probably I'll ask Karan, because he's been running dYdX, and dYdX has been doing a lot of experiments around community governance, and they currently have proposals where the community votes on. So I'll let Karan introduce to the communities what are DAOs and why do we need to pay attention to this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Santosh. So a very short description what a DAO is. DAO is essentially a new form of organizational structure, which is built on blockchain technology and uses digital assets for different things. So if you want to imagine DAOs, it's just simply like an organization which is formed to allocate resources, coordinate activities, and make decisions in a more decentralized manner. And it brings in like different community members together and uses digital assets to essentially participate in this ecosystem.
Awesome. So I'll probably ask the same question to more panelists, because today I think we don't have a standardization of taxonomy around DAOs, and different people are looking at DAOs in a different. Prashanth, you guys had a head start in investing in Web3 projects in India from Woodstock, and you must have seen a bunch of activity around DAOs. What are DAOs according to you, and why do we need to pay attention?
So yeah, so to me, right, DAO is basically automating corporate governance where code is law, and where the users and participants in the network or the protocol or the product are given control on the direction and the economic flow of incentives out of this particular product, right? That I think in simple terms is what DAO is. While we are creating Web3 as a standard and working across the stack, DAOs effectively allow you to use tokens or any other NFTs as an ownership layer to decentralize control and incentives, right? And that is where DAOs come from. And as you go deeper, I'm sure we'll cover this more in the discussion as well. They're typically like, you have like protocol DAOs, you have investment DAOs, and you have social DAOs, right? Each of them addressing different types of principles, but effectively they're all trying to in a way, decentralize governance and use certain aspects of Web3 to provide this governance back to the people who contribute the most to the growth of these protocols or networks.
Understood. I'll ask Amit. I actually am expecting a much elaborate answer because they have also made experiments on how a venture capital, borderless capital can form, which is Borderless DAO. So Amit would love to understand not only what DAO means to you, but what motivated you to go ahead and launch Borderless DAO.
Yeah, sure, Santosh. And I think, I think Shawn and Prashanth kind of, they captured it perfectly. Maybe I'll just add and kind of build a little bit on top of that. So the idea is, okay, when you have centralized governance, centralized, kind of decision making, there is a lot of bias which sets in. I like some person, I want to do it this way, which might not be in the interest of the broader community. And so in essence, to simplify it, what DAOs allow, like that's the whole, I think the concept of Web3 aligns very well with what DAOs are, where you take the power. Right now the world is divided into 99% and 1%. Like 1% hold the power and the might to control the 99%. And the whole idea of Web3 DAOs is to take this power from the 1% and give it back to the 99%, where the people who are the community which is most impacted and the community which is going to be most kind of active and affected by it, they control majority of the decisions. That's in a very kind of high level way the concept of DAOs. And so in fact, as like investors in itself, as we are investment itself is also a centralized thingy, right, where you are investing. So just to your point, and we can elaborate further as we go along, but the idea is that, okay, I might like a particular founder, I might be from that background or that sector and I understand it better. I met someone for a coffee, somebody else reached out to me at a wrong time. So why should my bias kind of impact the decision I make for investment? So the idea of kind of a investment, so investment itself is being disrupted, just as like I think few days back we saw like 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 an AI robot was going to fight for a case. So like law is being impacted by AI and all, just like that. The investment world itself is being impacted, where the idea is, okay, how can, and there are actually living examples, we can talk more about it in a bit, but where the investment process itself can be governed not just by a handful of people in the investment team, but more by a community, where the community decides, okay, we need to invest in this and not invest in this and so on. Now there are a few more complications that come in once you start decentralizing, where how much of stake does one have, how do you distribute the voting power and so on. We can discuss those, but that's in a nutshell the idea. The idea is to, for me, the idea of DAO is to take the power from the 1% and give it back to the community.
Yeah, definitely. That is one thing I think which excites a lot of community builders in our space. I think moving to Shawn, code is law. Does it make you quite uncomfortable to hear that? I think that is something which any of my lawyers will probably hate to hear it. The first thing when you're a founder in the DAO space, I think as an advice I get is go talk to a lawyer and figure out how to register one. So as a lawyer moving to the space and being a VC here, how do you look at DAOs and what makes you bullish about this?
Yeah, I think Santosh, the thing you said at the start actually, I thought was very interesting, which is thinking of DAOs not just as like a community organizing tool necessarily, but like the topic suggests, right, a new type of organization. I think what we are seeing in the DAO space today, whether it's sort of NFT communities or sort of the dYdX Foundation as an example, are all sort of great examples of like initial tests, right, of this new form of on-chain governance. Today, I would say that these like decentralized autonomous organizations probably isn't how I would think of the sort of the bigger, grander sort of 20-year arc of digital organizations, which I think can expand far beyond just sort of basically online co-ops, right? Which is what like DAOs are today. I think if you go back to like first principles, what is crypto? It's a tool to solve the problem of trust. And the large opportunity set, I think, is beyond sort of these experiments around, you know, like Constitution DAO and all that. Those are interesting experiments. But I think the big grand idea is programmable governance that scales across geographical borders, something that can be sort of transplanetary, right? Not just, you know, this is a US company, this is a Delaware company, this is a Cayman company, this is a BVI company, this is an Indian company. Communities aren't organized by geography, and so the organizations that form the body of that community should be sort of internet native, if you will.
Co-ops is also an interesting perspective towards DAOs. Before I zoom into our speakers' perspectives, just want to give a shout out to all the attendees. If you have any question and answers, we have a slot out at the end of the panel for this. Please feel free to direct message me on this. We are also collecting questions across our Discord group, WhatsApp, as well as Zoom. So if you're already on the call, you can direct message me any questions you want to ask the panelists, and I'll bring that up again in the Q&A. Now I want to zoom into, I think, Karan, your journey. It'll be great for our community to understand dYdX journey. What made you, your experiences around forming a DAO and creating community governance, and maybe also talk a little bit about your recent move towards an application blockchain and building on top of Cosmos, etc.
Sure, I can maybe start from like the personal journey in Web3 and how this entire idea of DAOs kind of is very close to like in everything that I do. So I started researching in Web3 ecosystem around, let's say, 2016, and I was looking at like early blockchain technologies, Neo, EOS, Ethereum. Back then, Ethereum was also an evolving ecosystem we were looking at. I was actually part of a VC company as a portfolio manager, and they were looking at investing into early ICO projects. So my task was to understand which are the big ecosystems that are coming up. And the idea that they were trying to implement, they were trying to build a platform for decentralized voting and decentralized investment, something that we see now, like through investment DAOs, what syndicate is. That was a very early idea that we were trying to explore. Back then, the only example was probably the DAO, which is the infamous DAO that made like Ethereum hard fork. But that was like some of the early examples that this company had, and we were looking at like how to form a community around it. So since then, I have built multiple communities. I built this community for this venture DAO, then also built a community called Open DeFi back in 2020, and when the DeFi summer kicked in. And I think that was the time when we actually started seeing true DAOs emerging. And that's when like the entire like DAO treasury went from a few $1 million to, let's say, $16-17 billion at its peak, right, in 2021. There were only a handful of people who used to work in DAOs, let's say early DAOs like Maker, Gitcoin. But then at that point, like let's say in 2021, there were over 1 million people somehow like interacting with DAOs, participating or were invested in some. So like I've seen this evolving, and there are many different good examples. Of course, DAO is still, I would say, an experimentation in governance. It's like implementing the use of open source software and programmable incentives to offer this enhanced transparency and adaptability to the entire like organizational structures, right? So since then, I have seen them evolve. We have seen many good examples. We have seen Yearn Finance, a very strong DeFi DAO. We have seen like community DAOs, incentive, then investment DAOs like Friends with Benefit is a community-driven DAO with incentives for creators, for people participating in like that community organizing events. Then Gitcoin is a major example of investing in like through grants. They have invested over like $40 million. I was part of Consensus, so I've seen Gitcoin's journey as well, like from an open source sort of GitHub that they wanted to form, then slowly moving towards a grant centric DAO that they created. And then I started my own organization. I formed the entire like DAO legal structure, like offshore foundation, legal wrapper around it, how we like form. And now looking at dYdX, which is a more mature sort of DAO, I would say, it's very interesting because now dYdX has also like gone through building on different products, building on different protocols, like from Ethereum to Starknet, which is our current protocol, to Cosmos, as you were asking. So just getting into that question of this app-centric or app-centric blockchains that are emerging, that's the new narrative. I was sold on this idea like long back. I actually built my own perpetual exchange on Cosmos protocol. So I was sold on that idea. As we scale these layer one protocol, as we scale these applications, we will see more and more like applications moving toward their own infrastructure. Something like I keep on giving this example wherever I'm like talking about this. Like Apple used to use microprocessor chips from, let's say, Intel or AMD or other companies. Then they slowly started building their own chips because they understood that, okay, we want to have end-to-end control on our infrastructure, right? So that's what dYdX is sort of moving towards with the Cosmos thing. And there is an entire structure of DAOs that we'll see around it. So already there's a proposal that recently passed around creating an operation sub-DAO for dYdX. We have a grants that is a community-led initiative that you can consider as another sub-DAO. And later on, every function that kind of is currently being managed by, let's say, dYdX Trading or dYdX Foundation is going to be handed over to like these sub-DAOs. Let's say, for example, marketing or affiliate management. All the functions of an exchange kind of would be driven by these sub-DAOs. And that's what like I'm personally very excited about. We will be seeing in the next, I would say, 1 year, all these sub-DAOs forming around the dYdX protocol. And once the open source protocol launches, all the incentives, all the fees would be kind of, the current idea is to be distributed to the validators. And that's going to see a huge exchange, a huge product, which does like over $1 billion of volume a day, incentivizing all these ecosystem partners in the DAO, right? So yeah, that's how I'm seeing the next year to be like.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we also have the luxury of having 3 VCs on this panel. So I would jump to the topic which people want to hear the most. What are some of the most interesting DAOs you have come across, or what are some of the concrete ideas for the future? It's an open question, I think, to Shawn, Prashanth, and Amit. I think we can go one after another, but same question for all 3 of you. About exciting DAOs in the past as well as concrete ideas for the future.
Yeah, happy to start. I think actually our investment approach on the DAO space has been, and Santosh, we were speaking about it a bit earlier. Like, I guess without sort of making I think false distinctions between Web 2 and Web 3. I think the DAO is a concept like a company or an organization. And so the DAO structure may be suitable for some types of organizations and less suitable for others. I think within the DAO space, the tooling space was very sort of hot, I guess, last year. I think there's still huge opportunities in tools that make DAOs more usable. Or transparent, and I think today a lot of the challenges we see in the DAO space is sort of the bridging that on to off-chain trust. I think information fragmentation across different metrics, right, from voting to sort of financial reporting or wallet transparency, and so there's a bunch of opportunities still out there. I think a lot of companies and teams are trying to build tools for that, and we're still pretty early days. So for us, it's less about what DAOs do we invest in, but what companies are going to build, or what teams are going to build tools that sort of enable DAOs to truly scale and sort of properly solve this trust challenge that we still see today.
And your favorite or DAO use cases which exist today?
Today, I think it's mostly sort of community driven, and for us, it's interesting to see some of these sort of purely digital NFT communities start to translate into real world spaces. So for example, some of the NFT communities that we're part of, opened a cafe or a co-working space in Singapore or in other sort of places. So it becomes sort of both a virtual and physical thing. The WASI's community that we're sort of part of, they're even sort of taking over a hotel in Singapore for 6 months and sort of branding it with the WASI sort of theme. And so there's a bunch of fun things that people are doing to sort of drive some community engagement and sort of help onboard. Actually, the physical spaces have been great to onboard sort of non-crypto native people into these digital communities as well, which is kind of interesting.
Prashanth and Amit, I'm actually expecting like clear names of some of your favorite DAOs and maybe a few interesting case studies and concrete ideas for future. You guys must be seeing a ton of deal flow in the space. So what do you, Prashanth?
Yeah, so I think this will be a lengthy answer, right? Because I want to start off by saying that we haven't specifically invested into any DAOs as such, right? Now, I need to caveat this by saying that, let's just try looking at the stack of DAOs. When there are, like, as I mentioned earlier, right? To me, in my mind, there are 3 types of DAOs. One is a protocol DAO, one is an investment DAO, and one is a social DAO, right? There or thereabouts. Protocol DAO is where, it's like your Uniswap, dYdX, and all of these networks or products that are looking at granting voting rights and rewards to, DAO members, thereby over a period of time, decentralizing their entire network, right? And in the process, they also start building up treasuries. So there is a protocol DAO. Then there is an investment DAO, which is, like Flamingo, etc., that have come up, and these are more around accessing crowd funds, and also then as a DAO in deciding on where to put invest those funds, right? And this is technically decentralizing the entire VC landscape. And some of them have done well over there, but again, sustainability and scaling is where these things matter. And the final thing is then social DAO, which is you have your Ape DAO, for instance, or you have ENS, you have etc., right? So these are like where you become part of elite communities, and there is gateway, there is access, there is identity, and such types of use cases that come within these social DAOs, right? So these are like 3 broad categories. And to me, fundamentally, where DAOs are stuck at the moment is an underappreciation of how governance needs to operate, right? And to me, who's worked for 11 years in a bank, it's very easy for anyone to say that it's too bureaucratic, it's too hierarchical. There are like too many concentrated centers of power and etc. But so let's just decentralize everything. And then we saw very clear examples like YGG versus Merit Circle and a couple of other such examples, right? Where giving out voting to every member of the DAO is not necessarily the right outcome that you will generate out of it, right? So then what happens then? Eventually, then you start forming sub DAOs, which is what I think dYdX is doing now. And dYdX is actually great, right? The way they have gone about conceptualizing their entire DAO, and like they have like a very long-term view, right? So it's actually a good case study to understand how DAOs are being constructed. But this underappreciation seeps through a lot of other DAOs, right? And then as a VC, it's difficult for me to kind of put my hat on and say that, how will this kind of scale or sustain? Because any type of product, network, or protocol requires subject matter expertise, right? And there are certain decisions that are better off taken by subject matter experts as opposed to being decentralized completely. So then it kind of evolves and evolves and evolves. And we have written a very detailed article on this, but to me, the ultimate shape of DAOs will be very similar to a constitutional republic, right? Where there are certain people who are in charge and who are, much better at solving certain types of problems. And then there is like a group of problems which are better off decentralized, so that work gets done faster without having bottlenecks in between, right? And that's pretty much the utopian way of a constitutional republic to function, with like your laws and like your subject matters, right? Experts. That is where I think eventually it's going. Now, when you think of it from that lens, then there is an entire infra layer of DAOs that needs to get built, right? And which is where your entire tooling comes in, your sub DAOs come in, the legal and compliance aspects of it comes in. One interesting example there that I have seen is Aragon DAO. they've kind of like, started, it's like a toolkit process where if you want to create a DAO, then you go there and then you kind of like pick and choose what you need to kind of build your own DAO. I won't say it's exhaustive, but it's a great start, right? So, but that area can be like done in a much better fashion. Then you have your treasury managements as well, because a lot of DAOs accrue a lot of value. Like, Uniswap has its own DAO which has like billions of value. Then you have BitDAO, which is an aggregation of treasuries of multiple places. And there is a lot of management that needs to be done over there. Then they have your Gnosis and Safe DAO, which is more on the multi-sig side. So these are all like more what I would say is in the treasury management area, right? Then you have your NFT based communities, right? You have your snapshots, and then you have your slightly offshoot of it is, you would say, ENS, which is more on the identity side. Then of course there is, once you start building a lot of these DAO tools and a lot of these are solving a lot of problems with or around DAOs, then you need to build an entire analytics layer as well, right? For dApps to kind of get a lot of value out of it, for investment funds like us to make sense of how the treasuries are being managed, and also as brands become more and more savvy with NFTs, etc. There is an entire analytics and CRM angle as well. One example there is probably Tally, which is doing something over there, but that space is also pretty wide open. And then of course, like I did mention ENS a couple of times, but again, I think that is very interesting, right? To kind of see how DAOs progress as well. Finally, I would like to, final point here is also it's the utopian nature of DAO needs to be put in perspective by the fact that wherever DAOs, there is voting around DAOs, there is a huge element of delegation, right? And a lot of people who are vote holders, vote seekers, etc., delegate into like certain chosen players or entities. So in a way, it is kind of evolving into like a constitutional republic, and there will be like pockets of centralization that we'll have to get used to within DAOs as well. I know it's been a very long answer, but I just wanted to give like a very top-down approach of how I like to think of DAOs.
Yeah, definitely super useful, as it's a good list of DAOs we can look at today, and also the sectors of DAO tooling that is going to evolve. Amit, over to you. Maybe as Prashanth already mentioned, some of these existing DAOs for a very long time. It'll be good to understand any interesting use cases you're looking at from a DAO perspective, or do you have any interesting mentions in your current portfolio around DAOs?
Yep, sure. I think Karan, Shawn, Prashanth, I think they gave a very good base and agree with all the points. So again, I'll try to add a little bit and maybe add a little more flavor on top of it, right? So, so what we have done is we have actually invested in several DAOs. So maybe I'll pick and choose a few. So one is on the kind of on the DeFi launch side. It's a launchpad called AlgoDAO, where the idea is that the projects that get launched on Algo, how we bring and they build something called as sub guilds, where you have people who have, and they have a guild leader where people can come and form like small groups, and then the guild leader will go and eventually they can go and ask questions to projects that are being submitted and choose the project. So very just as I think kind of we were talking about dYdX creating those sub DAOs, so they have like this concept of guilds where decisions are making in small groups, and then broader overall kind of a consensus is reached. So there one interesting thing building upon is maybe I can also talk a little bit about the challenges. So what happens is, one concept we had, it's very interesting concept where the idea is so Algo DAO is kind of the native token, and you go and stake the token, and as a part of the staking, the farming rewards that you yield, today what happens is you get those farming rewards, right? But an interesting concept there was, you get these farming rewards, and then you go and instead of getting it back, a portion of those farming rewards are then invested in all the new projects that are coming on the platform, right? And for example, a similar I was like what will be great is even for T-Hub, right? I think a great that could be like a great way, maybe using Autonomy or something else. Okay, all the people who stake the Autonomy token or who are contributing the rewards, instead of just kind of giving back the rewards, how can a portion of those be invested in all the new projects? That not only supports the new projects, but also see, if you invest just in one project, the risk is high, but if you invest in a basket of projects, you kind of form an ETF, right? And you get a pool kind of reward concept. So that is something which we are doing now. One of the challenges that happens there is, because we invested early, the top few investors, they hold most of the tokens, and so they get most of the rewards, so they have a disproportionately high power in saying, okay, which projects, how much of the rewards go for which project, and so on. So that's where, even though it's decentralized on the face of it, it's a DAO, everybody's saying, oh, it's a DAO, but it becomes more of a kind of a marketing phrase than actual implementation. Because if few of the top players, they control most of the decision making, then how is it different from like a centralized kind of structure? So there, I think one of the tools which we have leveraged is voting power, and also kind of a time on how the voting power grows. So initially, even generally what we do is, okay, the top kind of stakers won't have more than maybe 1/3 of the voting power, right? And then at least, so that 2/3 of the voting power rests with the community, and so on. So that's like maybe one example on the launchpad kind of side. We have another one called Staker DAO, which and this is another kind of the way we have seen transition. So there are some projects which start with being a DAO, that okay, the initial kind of, you start by launching a DAO, but we have also seen great examples, and I think sometimes this might be a more kind of better, smoother way, is you start with centralized. Because initially, as I think Prashanth, Karan, Shawn pointed out, the challenge is that you can't rely on the community to take good decisions, right? Uh, that's why sometimes it's like just with what happens in Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha, sometimes it is the elected officials elect the thing. So that's the same kind of concept here, where sometimes the community might take wrong decisions. So the idea is you start off initially where it is more centralized. Staker DAO is a classic example. They had a centralized team where it was a centralized decision making, and over time they have written smart contracts, smart governance, and the entire kind of governance is now decentralized and given to the community. I think that is a great way to kind of slowly set the right tone, have the right decision, set the right structure, and then slowly give the power to the community. Very quickly coming, so one of the maybe that's on the DeFi kind of launchpad side. On the NFT side, we have an investment called KinDAO, and again, building upon I think what some of the others said, is on the NFT side, today, for example, a user can't go and invest in like maybe a $1 million NFT, right? And so what it allows you to do as a community to own certain NFTs. So these are classic use cases which I think which is what Web3 was built for. And also they allow you to kind of search, using the DAO, you can do like an index search on all the NFT platforms which are available in the ecosystem to find which is a blessed platform. They allow like reverse searching, where you give a photo and you give a picture and it finds out, okay, which platform it is on and what is the NFT associated with it, and so on. So NFTs are the great concept. I think that the by far the leader what we have seen over time is Flamingo, right? The way they have implemented it, it's on ETH, and I think they did a classical job there. And then on the investment side, I think we were very impressed with Lao. Like Lao is a great example how they did it, how they established it, how they do the investments. And same thing I think we are trying to do with Borderless DAO. One of the things we are trying to do is, okay, so we have around 200 plus portfolio founders, and a lot of them have done well. A lot of them want to give back and grow the community. So the idea for this is, okay, you can have a closed end VC fund where you have HNIs and institutional investors investing, but along with it, there is also a Borderless DAO where you can have entrepreneurs who are building in the ecosystem. The community also come in and pitch in and invest. And so that is a classic investment DAO model where the community will decide which projects to invest in, and they get an opportunity to participate in the upside. The benefit of that is again some decades old pure investment concepts, diversification. So by adopting an ETF kind of approach, you are not exposed to just investing in one project. By investing in the DAO, you get a basket of investments, and so you capture the upside. So I think those were some top 3 which come to mind. And just building upon, I think also this was covered. What we are excited about is, so when the gold rush was going on, I think the safest bet was investing in people who are doing the kind of the mining equipment that the people will use for the gold rush. So I think so as DAOs grow, you need an infrastructure. So we have made investments in ZestCap, which is trying to help investment funds adopt a more DAO approach. One very unique investment we made was a company called DAO Helper, which are a part of our accelerator. So just like you have LinkedIn for reputation, the problem is today in DAOs, you don't have a reputation. So they help you form, it's like LinkedIn for DAOs. So you can create a reputation based on all the contributions you have done across DAOs, and that reputation grows over time. So, and then you have, so all the DAO tooling basically is something which, we are also kind of backed in, because as these DAOs grow, you need to back it with this tooling.
Yeah, definitely. I think DAOs and future of work, since you mentioned LinkedIn for DAOs, is also a very interesting concept on how I can join these permissionless organizations and work is also an upcoming narrative. But with no further delay, let me zoom into some of these interesting community questions I'm getting. I'll start off with a few questions from Discord. We have a question from an anon handle, Trustless Cake. He's asking, or I don't know, he or she is asking, it's 2025. I'm or a community. Convince me why I should run a DAO. I think it's an interesting question. Open to all. If anyone wants to take that.
Can you repeat that one? Sorry, I got a bit of a hang there.
Yeah, the question is, it's 2025. I'm building a product or a community. Convince me why I should run it as a DAO.
I think that's an interesting question and quite open-ended. The question that the person should be asking themselves is like, why do they want to build a DAO? Like, is there? I think any DAO that is built is started with a mission or an idea of why it should be structured in that manner, right? What we are trying to do here is we are working with these open source protocols, which are kind of whether they are, let's say, public goods, or whether they are kind of like in the base layer infrastructure for a particular use case for a particular purpose, right? Let's say it's an investment DAO for purchasing a football team. So that has a very specific vision of, okay, we want to purchase this team, we want to come together. Something like, I think Shawn mentioned about Constitution DAO. So that was an interesting idea. A lot of people came together. We want to purchase this copy of this US Constitution, right? So what is the best way to do it? Let's say you can form an enterprise, a company in a particular jurisdiction, which will have to do all sorts of like cross-border transactions for purchasing a particular copy. It would take like months and months of effort, but the auction was happening in, let's say, 2 weeks time, and that DAO just is spun up in like 5 days, right? So that was the reason behind it. So the question should be, instead of asking, convince me to create a DAO, it should be, what is the use case? What are you trying to build? Does it require sort of community-led governance, token-driven mechanism to invest into something, or token-driven mechanism to, let's say, make a particular decision? If that's the case, or if you're building an open source, let's say a public good for the future of the internet, you can say, yeah, and those are good rationales to go for a DAO.
Prashanth, I saw you as well muting. Do you want to add anything to that, or shall I move on to next question? Or
Shawn, I think it's pretty okay. Like, I mean, I completely agree that we're not saying you should definitely build a DAO, right? There has to be like a mission statement for you why you want to build a DAO. And there are like certain things that I have in mind in terms of, do you want to bring in more accountability and transparency in the decision making? Do you want to give more control to the key users and people who kind of further your product, right? And do you believe in automated corporate governance where code is law and it's a lot more disintermediated in terms of decision making, right? Then that's a starting point where you start to think how whether or not you want to build a DAO, and then you go about devising what type of DAO it will be. But it's way too extremely open-ended to kind of go much beyond that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the next question is, how can existing stock business to business or business to consumer benefit from forming DAOs? Maybe this question is also assuming that DAO will become an obvious thing in future, but maybe I'll take a step back and ask a pre-question to this. Do you think DAOs will become more common, or is it going to be for specific use cases that it'll work better? Because it's an important question, because we stand at a time where we don't have the entire infrastructure ready. I don't the use case clarity that DAOs, everybody should form a DAO. But the reason I'm also stressing on this is, today we cannot form companies at the push of a button, but we can do everything else on the internet at the push of a button. Not too long ago, we were used to booking travel tickets through an agent. The same way, today we are forming companies through an accountant or a lawyer. Do you think DAOs will replace the way we form companies, or do you think it is still a use case which is very crypto native, and some of the use cases like Karan mentioned where it will work better?
I'm happy to take a crack at that. I actually think that the future converges, right? So it will both probably be easier for, say you want to launch your own like direct to consumer brand and you have an idea. It might be that, today that's still sort of most simple to do on Kickstarter. But in a DAO format, you can have sort of your early Kickstarter backers as shareholders, and they have certain voting rights, and they have some sort of like input into the design process of the product, and they can help you sort of evangelize the product, right? That's like a pretty simple, potentially doable, maybe not super mainstream right now, but you can imagine in 2 years that's like an easy type of use case for a digital organization. But I think you can start to see sort of the concept of programmable governance move into potentially the traditional markets as well, right? Like if you think about the human behaviors are all the same challenges. I think people have been throughout this panel so far, we've been talking about like the analog to corporate law, right? How do you govern an existing company? You have shareholders who own it. You then delegate it to the board who is responsible. The board delegates it to an executive team who makes sort of specific decisions around financing and marketing and sales and whatnot. And all of this is to solve this collective action problem, right? Like in big groups, individuals generally are not sort of well suited to make decisions, right? In big groups, that are very dispersed, people don't care, there's apathy, it's ineffective. And that sort of behavior is not unique to DAOs, right? You see that behavior, that being an issue in DAOs today. It's not unique to crypto organizations. You see this behavior in elections, you see this behavior in the equity markets. And so all of this stuff around delegation and programmable governance is, I think, at scale, imagine sort of this probably 10, 15 years out, where concepts like voting that is tied to sort of ownership and that is, that measures the length of your ownership or locks up your shares. If you commit some organization to a 10-year decision, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to sell your shares the second day after that decision is taken, right? So I think some of these sort of programmable governance things are also in the very big picture and grand scheme of things start to potentially, in the future also affect how we run companies and societies and maybe even political organizations in that today you rely on very sort of manual, count the number of hands around the table type of governance.
Yeah. I'll move on to the next question. I think this is a little critical towards DAOs, but it'll be interesting to address this. I mean, this is what we will probably hear a lot when we mention DAOs, focus on the P start, that's the decentralized bit. So here's a question from a community member, Venkat. He's asking us, how can Web3 DAOs overcome the issue of low user engagement and participation in governance not to also mention a lot of DAOs today are centralized in a sense. Amit or Prashanth, they that.
Yeah, Prashanth, you want to go first?
Yeah, again, sorry, I think it's the internet at my end, Santosh. Apologies. I only caught part of it. If you could repeat it again.
Yeah. The question is, how can DAOs in Web3 overcome low user engagement and participation and governance today? I mean, we've noticed this with quite a lot of DAOs. I think even MakerDAO governance see a less participation compared to their token.
It's systemic. It's even the Polygon hard fork that was voted upon, I think had like very low participation, right? And it is again is going back to like my point of underappreciating how governance happens in the real world, right? And even though we are like looking to program governance, which is great, I think participation, it's not something you can program, right? And this therefore has I would say limitations, but like you invest in 10 projects, you are on the DAO of like projects, you get governance proposals. It's very difficult to stay on top of all of those projects and have like a very concrete view on which side of the line you want to vote, right? And in many cases, not voting may be either apathy, or it may be you are only there for speculation and don't really care about the voting, or you just are not sufficiently aware of what's going on to vote, which is where a lot of delegation happens now, right? And which I think will kind of it's inevitable that there will be people who will be a lot more hands-on with the project and will therefore seek out to become the delegator, to be delegated to be able to take a lot of these votes, right? How do we increase the participation rate is like a very it's like anybody's guess, right? If you have a set number of users, and it's very difficult to force them to participate. I think it just will inch upwards and upwards over a period of time as people start entering into DAOs for the ethos of decentralizing governance, as opposed to wanting to be part of it for speculative value of the token, right? And this ethos change will take a long time. It's like a generational shift, in my opinion. So I don't anticipate shift in user participation to spike through the roof in the near term. But I just feel like because the ethos is so fundamental, I'm optimistic that we'll see more participation rates, and DAOs will also be structured in a way that certain people are given more like I said, the constitutional republic analogy again, like it will kind of all move into a space where not everyone needs to vote on everything, but certain people are supposed to be voting on certain aspects where they have been chosen to be part of those problems. And if you don't vote, if you don't consistently participate, then your value within the ecosystem, either in terms of control or economics, can be slashed over a period of time as well, right? And I think that is how it will eventually progress.
Yeah, just a quick stat here, actually. I think the relevant sort of comparison is probably maybe the retail equity market. And in the US, someone did a study, about 12% maybe of retail equity holders bother to vote. And so, I mean, given sort of human incentives, without sort of better delegation and transparency and convenience and the ability to sort of actually know what you're supposed to be voting on, without spending a ton of time, I think we don't expect somehow that retail voting in a decentralized organization is going to be substantially different from how people behave in the equity markets.
Yeah, and to add to that,
yeah, go ahead.
Quickly wanted to add one point to that. So I agree, like incentive design, what Shawn is mentioning is I think going to be crucial, but also there is this aspect of delegates, which a lot of new DAOs, especially like ENS, came up with a very interesting structure with delegates. And since then, every DAO has kind of incorporated in some manner is going to be important. Like there would be dormant retail that could just like simply delegate their voting power to essentially community members who they believe would be aligned with their vision. And that's totally fair and understandable. We don't need to achieve 100% engagement from the community. We want like decisions to be made from crucial stakeholders.
Okay. I think I have one last question, but I also want to take your recommendations. So maybe we'll take that offline. But before we let you go, we want to hear one moonshot-ish prediction next 3 to 5 years from all of you. The DAOs going, or what do you think they should be also? Not necessarily have to come true. 3 to 5 years from now, where do you see DAO space going to?
I'm happy to start. I actually don't think it's all that moonshotty, to be honest. I think with the advent of sort of more digital currencies, whether they are stable coins, digital dollars, or it's like crypto native currencies, with all the sort of advancements around tooling and sort of wallet infrastructure and messaging, I do think it becomes easier and easier for people to form sort of, like you said, one-click organizations. And I don't mean these like mega organizations with 1,000 participants. Simple as like a group chat with friends, and you guys want to buy something together, and you're able to form sort of these mini DAOs, and vote in chat, right? Very simple sort of tools that sort of are built into messaging apps. And I think that sort of could become like a simpler and simpler way this DAO concept gets embedded in the lives of everyday people and consumers. Just groups of friends and people with that can pool resources together to do something. Okay,
Prashanth.
Yeah. So again, I don't know if these moonshots, but two specific areas I'm quite keen on is number one, treasury management within DAOs. So a lot of DAOs now, and also as we keep progressing, right, will at a protocol DAO level, will start accruing a lot of value and also goodwill, right? And the ability to risk manage these protocols, treasuries is going to be very interesting. Now, how does and DAOs can be created to be an overlap between treasury management and also like venture DAOs, right? And again, I think BitDAO is doing something similar, but I think that has big scope because it directly goes to the value of the DAOs. The second aspect is there are so many DAOs out there and a lot of activity happening within a lot of DAOs. How do we make the work of a person within a DAO interoperable across multiple DAOs, right? How can I carry my credentials of what I've done in proving myself to be an able DAO participant in one space, and using that at an identity and an access level to carry it across Web3, right? Because we'll all have digital identities, be it permissioned or permissionless. We will have such identities which will be in our restricted to our wallets, right? And whatever I'm doing across DAOs should be very meaningfully carried forward, because we will be eventually forming communities of DAOs for individual sectors, right? And like for subject matters. So there should be ability for people to immediately I'm sure there are like already such projects, but then this can evolve into a much better fashion where like today, if I'm coming from this particular banking and Web3 kind of background, I'm looking for a role, then I know where to go to, how to kind of access those jobs, etc. There is a very simple, there is a very elegant way for this to work in programmed governance as well, and it's probably a lot easier, but a lot of tooling and a lot of interoperability will need to be developed over there too, and that I think over a period of time will accrue a lot of value to DAOs as an ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting prediction. Amit and Karan, do you guys want to do a quick prediction?
Sure, I can maybe start first. So I think we are all a bunch of realists here, so no moonshots, more like what I expect in, let's say, 3 to 5 years time is there would be clear winners and losers, and especially there would be, of course, new innovations coming in, but from today's time, like we have a lot of investors or VCs on the panel, they would agree that as traditional startups, sort of there's 1% success rate. That's what we'll see from Web3 protocols and DAOs as well. But I think some of the winners would definitely be those who are disrupting the ownership and creator economy. So one of the major concerns we have with Web3, with Web2, or how the Web3 space evolved is around the financial, one is around like lack of transparency in the financial world, and second is around a lot of power by these social media empires, right? How they customize the entire experience, how they like kind of shift our mentality or keep us in a bubble, or how they like design the incentives to keep on like getting more and more engagement on their platforms. So that's going to be disrupted in some manner, and there would be like creator or user-centric DAOs, which would essentially be helping us design better social platforms. And they would be like widely adopted, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Debundling of creator economy is interesting as well. Amit, I think we overshot our time. So quickly, your prediction.
Yeah, very quickly. I'll keep it very short. So, but agree with all of the others. I think main thing is, I don't think that all companies should form DAOs, right? I think DAOs are more applicable when the community is informed. So like, I think maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, it would be great to see informed communities adopting a DAO approach, and maybe more informed communities that are today using a more centralized way of running. They're gradually moving towards decentralization. I think that would be a great step towards it.
Yeah, this is super exciting. I hate to let you all go. I think, which is why we have more deeper dive sessions with masterclasses. I think it's worth zooming into all your perspectives in future over these sessions. But a fantastic panel. Thank you again for. Hope to collaborate and have you involved in this community in future. Thank you, Shawn, Prashanth, Karan, and Amit. Look forward to engaging with you again. Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
having us. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thanks,
and everyone
everyone.
else. Thank you.
Thanks, you, bro.